Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast, and we're looking at Playa Props on a Tuesday here. First NBA Playa Props video of 2024. Happy New Year to everybody. We've also got best bets up right now, as we do each and every weekday. So go ahead and like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us all season. Also want you to head to thelines.com and use everything we have up on the site, including that odds finder tool to make sure you're getting the best props and juice available to you from all of these books that are giving us these props this season. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we were really hot on Friday to end the year. Went 7-2 total right there. 3-1 in the Playa Props. Went 4-1 in the best bets. So we're looking to keep it hot and ride the wave here into 2024. Nate, let's kick it off with your first Playa Prop.
Yeah, it's also a best bet here, which is SGA over. The 44.5 PRA is the line here, but I did a parlay in the best bet that's a lot easier for him to hit, and the odds are even slightly better of just 30 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. I guess you get a bad beat if he goes, 3 rebounds or 3 assists, but this is something he's done in 17 straight at home, 11 straight overall, but at home he averages more. He's done it comfortably. He's averaging 6 rebounds and 6.5 assists per game at home, and he's going to bring it against a contender in terms of the scoring. His last 2 against Boston, 34 points per game on 33% usage. His last 4 against what I would consider contending teams, 36 points per game on 64% field goal shooting. So the fact that he only had 24 against Brooklyn on New Year's Eve, don't let that dissuade you. That's just like getting ready for a game they have circled. The Thunder have played Boston tough since they've actually been a competitive team, right? I mean, and they even beat the Celtics in surprise fashion while they were tanking 2 years ago, because Mark Dagnall is from Central Mass, and I think they won one for the Gipper there, but I digress. Like, SGA, Boston has been getting their best shot from stars lately. He is obviously a superstar. They got 31, 6, and 9 from Cade. They got big games from Scotty and Siakam in against the Raptors on that back-to-back. They had 40 and 13 from AD. They got 33, 3, and 6 from Steph. SGA, like I said, bringing it against contenders. And I like the odds you can get here. It's minus 150, but I think it's still decent value for him to just be the top scorer in this game, because Boston has such a balanced approach. Like, it's hard to imagine Tatum or Jaylen Brown going over 30. They'll probably both be around 27, 28 if this is a high scoring environment. But Boston has 5 guys who are scoring efficiently. OKC might only have 1 if Jalen Williams is not going, and the SGA will be like, that's fine. I can still get you 40, even against the best perimeter backcourt in the league. Like, you just cannot stop me. And he just brings it in these good matchups.
Yeah. I actually faded him in that game, that last game against the Nets, where it was like, this is going to be gross, and I'm sure the Thunder will pull it out, and of course they did, because the Nets are, like we talked about, backsliding into sucking, but that's not what this is. This is SGA going up in a game that I'm calling a finals preview, easily potential finals preview. We'll see what happens when the Thunder face the Nuggets in the playoffs, and we'll see who comes out of the West. But that's my prediction right now, because I don't know. Like, we have this problem with trusting teams before we see them do it. And I'm like, what? No, I don't need to see them win the championship to believe they can win the championship. I just need to see them play in big games, and I need to see Shai be the best player on the floor in these games. And there's definitely a correlation to, like, who's on the other team and how hard is Shai going to, like, outscore that person. And I believe in it. I'm not going to, like, it's not straight up just like, oh, Shai feels motivated. That's not the whole analysis here. But you want to be able to bank on your stars, like, giving a shit during a long season, and this is one of those give a shit moments for sure. So I've got a couple unders here in Playa Props, because this number is too high in this Magic and Warriors game for Chris Paul to go under 9.5 assists for CP3 in this one. Duh, point God. That's too many against the team that limits teams to the fewest assists per game in the Magic. That's partly because they're like long and versatile at pretty much every position. We see that from teams like the Bulls and the Raptors, right? Like the Pelicans. They don't give up assists because of the fact that, like, they can switch so easily. You're not going to get very many mismatches where you've got a guy open because you've got a double over here or there, and so there's just nobody that you have to worry about outside of CP3. Like, you can stay home on other guys. Like, you don't have to, like, play, you know what I mean? Like, you basically, like, there's not really great shooting going on for the Dubs anywhere right now outside of Steph Curry when he's open. So I'm not really concerned with like mismatches or guys getting open for the dubs against this Magic defense. He's got 12 potential assists per game since Day went down, and he's played a couple more minutes in those games as well. But like I said, the dubs are down to a bottom 10 true shooting percentage team. And that is the reason that on 12 potential assists per game, CP3 is not even averaging like 7.2 basically, right? Since Draymond went down. In fact, a little bit lower than that, about 7.1-ish, whatever. But the point is like he's not getting 10. And he's done that only twice now since Day went down. The Magic, like I said, not only is it just everywhere on the floor, but the third fewest assists per game to point guards and shooting guards as well. Like shooting guards aren't getting assists either. So however you want to look at it, Jalen Suggs is on the best ball handler on that team. I do think Suggs will be spending the majority, if not all of his time on Steph Curry, to be honest. I mean, you're not even really worried about Clay nearly as much anymore. But either way, for CB3, it's not like he's going to have like Cole Anthony on him. He's still going to have some form of like Gary Harris, another really solid wing defender and guard defender. So the other thing is like the fouls. There's going to be fouls in this game that really drove me right away from the under, was how many fouls both of these teams give up. And so I do think like if you've got Paul passing to shooters, Dubs don't have great shooters. You got Paul passing to a cutting Jonathan Kuminga or Andrew Wiggins, they're getting fouled if they get a shot up, because that's where the Magic are at right now, 23rd in their opponent's free throw attempt rate. The Dubs 27th, so that's also why I stay away from that, from really assists and from points in this game. So yeah, we'll go under for Chris Paul for the 10 assists. It's just too high in a game against the Magic.
Yeah, what is this line? Like, I know he had double digits in 3 in a row, including that overtime game with Boston, but now 13 assists in his last 3 total. And you're saying 10 assists in one game against one of the best defenses in the league. I mean, just goes 9-4-4 against Miami, a similar, kind of stalwart backcourt at home for CP3. And yeah, I mean, who are you trusting to score around CP3? Like, right. The Magic are not giving up slip pick and rolls to Kuminga. Like, they're not just going to let Steph get open. Like, this is an extremely disciplined defense. Like, the potential assists probably will even drop here because of that. So I'm going to go negative correlation special here. De'Aaron Fox under 29.5 points, with the Kings favored by -16 against the Hornets. The Hornets are on a back-to-back here, and boy, are they struggling. Game 5 of the West Coast trip, they have lost 11 straight and allowed the highest assist-to-field goal ratio in that span. They've allowed the 6th most assists to point guards, 5th fewest points to point guards, because their defense is just so vulnerable. It's basically the opposite of what we're saying with Orlando. All Fox has to do is kick it out. Somebody's going to be open. It's heavily juiced to the over for him to get 6 assists, and I would consider that. But like, I'm looking at a blowout here for sure. The Kings tend to blow teams out when they come into Sacramento with the rest disadvantage. I mean, the Hornets are probably just trying to get home and sleep at this point and stop the beatings. But Fox, when he's played, teams from the Eastern Conference, gone under this number in 6 of the last 8. Last season, I mean, he dropped 37 against the Hornets, but that was in a loss of a 125-119 loss, completely different situation. Yeah. Hornets are only scoring 103 during this losing streak. There's no way they're going to keep pace with the Kings. They have negative 17.5 net rating. Like, that's all I have to say, really, is just like, this game is not going to be close down the stretch, and De'Aaron Fox going to need a little rest. I mean, he just had 24 in a blowout against Memphis. Probably a similar situation here. So I could even look at, an adjusted line for the Kings. Like, I'm not going to take the -16 with this, but like -7, -8, just something like a normal line for Fox to go under 30 points along with this.
A normal NBA spread, because there's 2 real NBA teams playing, unlike this game where you've got the JV Hornets coming in, and we normally save that for the JV Jazz because we love alliteration, but this Hornets team is a freshman squad, man, if you had that in high school. So the 20, I love this play 100%. The only scenarios this season where it's like, this is not a good play to fade 30 points for a dude in probably a 20-point blowout. It's like, is there incentive? Does De'Aaron Fox care to dominate? Right? Because I'm referencing a couple times where like LeBron played against, I forget who it was, but it was like a revenge narrative against a former teammate, and then he got 30 unnecessarily in a 20-point win. Steph just did that against Jordan Poole. Didn't need to get 30, but he chose to because Jordan Poole was scoring as well, and he wanted to put him in his place. There ain't nothing like that here. This is the poor Hornets. This would be the wildest, not even win. Like if they keep this thing into double digits and are playing a game into the fourth quarter, that would be a shock to me. I think there's probably some good, Kings to lead at half, Kings to lead every quarter, whatever you want to do. I don't know why the Kings would play with their food, just like get it over and get De'Aaron out there out of the game and keep him healthy. So I love the under in those situations. I'm going to go back to the same game and go under again for the other point guard on this team, who we'll call a shooting guard when Chris Paul is out there, and that's Steph Curry. And as I mentioned in the best bets, I'm not fading his points because he could very likely go off. The only real vulnerable place on the floor that the Magic are vulnerable is, are you a good shooting point guard who can shoot off the dribble specifically, or do you rely on catch and shoot? Obviously, Steph Curry is the best shooter when he's shooting with his left hand or backwards or blindfolded, so it doesn't matter. But the rebounds and assists are not nearly there for him with this iteration of the Dubs. And it's not just, Steph without Draymond or with Draymond. It's like Steph in this version of the Dubs isn't responsible nearly as much for the rebounding and to a degree the assists. So yeah, it's under 10. I hope I said that. Rebounds and assists for Steph. And just looking, like I said, looking at some of the stuff real quick without Day-Day. In the games with him, 30 a game, 5 boards, and 5 assists. Without him, 25 a game, 4 boards, 4 assists. There's been plenty of cupcakes in there for Steph as well. He did get the 30 against the Wizards, and he's played against the Mavericks, the Nets, a bunch of other awful defenses in there, Portland, and even Boston, where they had 129. And those were the games where, like, yeah, I trust Steph against Boston. I trust him against those teams. I don't trust him against this team. Like, by the way, the only reason I trust him against Boston is because he's the Boston Whisperer, not because he's like a good matchup for him. They're the best defensive backcourt in the league, but he's Steph Curry. I just don't see that for him with the rebounds and assists in this one. So he's gone under an 8 of his last 10, and 10 games ago is when Draymond decided to literally right hook Yusuf Nurkic in the face, and has been out since then. So the 8 of 10 that he's gone without Day-Day is in part because of where he's playing on the floor, because of the fact that there's a lot more drives and cuts now for Warriors players. Steph's not getting into the lane like he used to, right? The lane used to be wide open for Steph because the only two people that were going in there were he or Andrew Wiggins at one point in time, or an Andre Iguodala, that kind of thing. But now we're in a place where they're driving way more, they're cutting way more. A way higher frequency of their possessions involves a lot less pick and roll, and they involve a lot more cuts to the basket. Like I said, with the athletes and the young guns, the way that they're looking to push this thing without Draymond in there, playing Wiggins even a little bit less so that they can get Kuminga some more time. But as a result of all that, he's not getting into the lane. The rebound chances are down to 7 a game, and he's only got 3 a game since Day-Day's been out. He's only gone over the rebounds one time. It's 4.5. I think that's a huge part of it. That's way too high. If you're scared of the assists and you just want the rebounds, that's my favorite part of this bet, because like I said, he's not getting into the lane nearly as much for those rebound chances. And the assists are the same concept. Like, you're getting more Chris Paul, and as a result, and you're even getting more Brandon Podziemski, who is a guy that, like, once Steph gets the ball out of his hands, and which, by the way, defenses are quickly forcing the ball out of Steph's hands early in possessions, for the sake of the fact that limits his assists at that point, because he's so far from the basket. And now the Dubs are playing 4-on-3 with Brandon Podziemski in that point role, right, where he's sort of Draymond right now. And that's why Podziemski's potential assists are up. When Chris Paul is in there, they're a lot more of a traditional Steph come off of screens and shoot off of the screens on the wing, and Chris Paul's finding him in those instances. So I just don't think that that's going to be there for him against, once again, the best team at limiting assists in the league.
Yeah, and third fewest at point guards specifically. It's basically what we're talking about with Chris Paul. Like, normally I'd be like, you can't fade both these guys, but I again think that the number is just way too high for Chris Paul, and that Steph's going to have to expend more energy than usual on offense to get his shots. Like, he might go off against this team, but it's not easy.
Right.
So I don't think he's going to have much left to be that kind of rebounding and facilitating force that you would need for him to top this number, which, like you said, yeah, it's just not been happening lately. The Warriors have just not been humming. It is no longer the beautiful offense, right? It is disjointed, and they're just trying to figure it out. So Steph is not going to get a bunch of assists because the guys around him are thriving.
Yeah, and there's not going to be great opportunities for fast break, transition. Like, fluidity is not going to be high in this game. It's going to be a bit slower and sloppier. Well, sloppier is not right, but stickier, right? Like sludgier. But either way, that is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along. Subscribe to that page, like the video if you would. We're coming back to you each and every weekday with these play of props, and also got best bets for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.